Hello and welcome to Sarat Chandra IAS Academy, where your dreams are our mission. This is Yatharth here, and today we will be talking about the tribal unrest and violence in Manipur. We'll also be discussing the mapping portion and see various other things as well. Alright, so this is from where I have taken this article. What is behind Manipur's widespread unrest? And what triggered the conflict between the non-tribal Meiteis people, non-tribal, and other tribal groups. So clearly this is related to tribal identity. So we can consider this in first and foremost geography, and as a part of geography in demography. We'll see more what issues are there. We can consider this in society also. What issues are there? We'll deal with some portion of the IR also. What is the foreign incursion from other countries or neighboring countries? So one more thing, we can see this is in context of anthropology also. So this is optional specific. So we'll deal with many things here. Let's see one by one. So this is the relative location of Manipur in India. So this is what we are talking about, the northeastern portion. By and large. So this is Arunachal Pradesh. This here is Nagaland. Then followed by Manipur. Then Mizoram, Tripura, and Meghalaya. And in the middle there lies Assam. The small one here is Sikkim. And then we follow on to the West Bengal and other portion of India. So basically we are talking about the northeast portion. Alright. So one more thing you can see is all these countries are in boundary with few other countries as well, such as Bangladesh and Myanmar. Alright, so this is the context, geographical context. Let us also see the internal geography of the Manipur. So these are the districts of Manipur. You can see here there is a central portion which is known as the Imphal Valley. Imphal Valley. And these portions are known as the hill districts. We will see why they are known as such. Alright. This is again the map here in which you can see Arunachal Pradesh, then Nagaland, Manipur, which we are talking about, Meghalaya, Tripura here, and Assam. Alright. So let me erase this. Okay. So this is a 3D mapping you can see of the Manipur. And this is the Imphal Valley. So this is here the valley portion, which is relatively flatter. And this is surrounded by these hill districts. This specific village is much in news, Chandapur. So we'll see why. Okay. So I hope you have understood till here the geography and GS1 portion. Alright. So let's see the demographical and geographical context here. So the state is like a football stadium. So we have already seen this. A football stadium is like this. The center portion is there and there is many seating arrangements for the viewers. Alright. So with the Imphal Valley representing the playfield at the center and the surrounding hills the galleries. The valley, which comprises about 10% of Manipur's landmass, is dominated by the non-tribal Meitei, who account for more than 64% of the population of the state. So 64% population is living in the Imphal Valley and dominated by the Meiteis, and yields 40 of the state's 60 MLAs. That means they are also politically dominating. The hills, comprising 90% of the geographical area, are inhabited by more than 35% recognized tribes, but send only 20 MLAs to the assembly. That means they are politically underrepresented. So while a majority of the Meiteis are Hindus, followed by Muslims, the 33 recognized tribes, broadly classified into any Naga tribes and any Kuki tribes, are largely Christians. Alright. So let us see one thing here, which is of foremost importance. Whenever we talk about people, their identity is defined by one, their population. Secondly, their language. Thirdly, with their culture. Now, all these things are decided by various factors, which is, let's say, their traditional ruling structure or their, let's say, history, how their society is formed or social hierarchy in the present times, foremostly their economic means of sustenance. This is the main thing in any identity crisis. Alright. So even if we talk about tribals, the same things apply. What is their population and demography? What is their linguistic basis or language? And what is their culture? So this preserving all these things leads to the preservation of a tribe. So let's see about the Meiteis. So the ST Demand Committee of the Manipur began demanding ST status for the Meiteis in 2012. The Meiteis were recognized as a tribe before the merger of the state, which is Manipur, with the Union of India in 1949. The ST status is needed to preserve the community and save the ancestral land, tradition, culture, and language. So these are the things we talked about. In 1972, the Union Territory of Manipur became 19th state of India. So this can be an introduction line here. If you are writing any question about the Manipur, you can begin with this, that in 1972, the UT of Manipur became the 19th state of India. The Meiteis need constitutional safeguards against outsiders, stating that the community has been kept away from the hills, while the tribal people can buy land in the shrinking Imphal Valley. So as we saw here, when we talk about the tribal and non-tribal people, tribal and non-tribal people, it becomes a matter of identity. How we identify these people, one from the other. And it becomes very significant when these groups are large and quite unified. That means, let's say these are the group A, this is group B. Now these are the Nagas and Kukis. In the Manipur, this group is Meitei. This group lives in the Imphal Valley and is afraid that these Naga and Kuki people who live in the hills right now or hill districts can purchase land in the valley, but vice versa is not true because Meiteis are not identified as tribes. Also, these people naturally they get reservations in the jobs. All right. So these are the main and basic issues: economy, land, identity, and constitutional safeguards. All right. Okay. So the Meiteis have been gradually marginalized in their ancestral lands, which is Imphal Valley. The population was 59% of the total population in 1951 and now has been shrunk to 44%. The Naga and Kuki movements fueled Meitei nationalism. Concerns over demographic change and shrinking of traditional Meitei areas started to surface in the 1970s. During the period of 2006 to 12 came the demand for an inner line permit in Manipur to bar outsiders. The free movement of Kuki Zomi across Manipur porous border with Myanmar fanned fears of the demographic change. So let's see this thing also. So you must be knowing about the inner line permit thing. It's basically in the outstates of the northeast. So what is ILP? The border here is very porous with other countries such as Myanmar. And the demography is pretty similar here to here, not much different. So there also live Kuki Zomi peoples. So these people easily enter the India border, through Indian border, into India, let's say, and reside in the hill districts. Alright. So they also act like tribals and get the benefit of their tribal identities. They are also slowly coming to the valley land, Imphal Valley land, as let's say migrant population. So this has created apprehension in the Meitei community that our land is shrinking, we don't have a tribal identity despite the same economic and social hierarchy systems. Alright. So the growth rate of Manipur's population has jumped from 12.8% in 1941-51 period to 35.04% during the 51-61 and to 37.56% in the later decades after the permit system was abolished. So earlier there was ILP, inner line permit system, because of which outsiders needed a special permit in order to enter Manipur. So now the ILP is, let's say, not required. So outsiders kept coming and the population boomed. So the latest update is in 2022 ILP was restarted in Manipur. There was a debate around it in 2022 as well. So you can read that in another news, in a separate, let's say, note making system, the different heading that ILP in Manipur. So this is a separate topic in and all. You can read about it very separately. All right. So in Manipur, the government is the largest employer, and the reservations for ST in jobs amount to an unfair advantage. Now the issue is, let's say this is Manipur, this is Imphal Valley, and these are the hill districts. So these Meitei people, let's say they make 60% of the population, and these remaining they make 40% or a majority of population, other tribes, and these are the Meitei people. So if they both get reservation, so it basically becomes a no reservation thing. That means all become equal. So it reduces the advantage of these people from the employment. So this is the basic and most sourced issue for this conflict. Other thing is infrastructure development like railways that would open Manipur further has made insecurities worse. Because railways, of course, it will be in valley because it needs a flat area to operate. Now, if that's in the valley and there is employment, if there is railway, there is employment, and employment for whom? More tribal people. So they will come down to the valley districts from their hill districts because they will start living there for the employment, and it will create a very local economy. So it will also create the incursion of the hill people in the valley. So these are basic concerns of Methi people. All right. Let's see why others are against it. So the Metis have a demographic and a political advantage. Demographic, why? Because of the living in the valley. So it's easier for them to move across, do trade and other things. Then there's a political advantage. 40 out of 60 MLAs are from among Methi people. They are also more academically advanced. Why? Because in the valley there is more education system. Other thing, ST status to the Metis would lead to loss of job opportunities and allow them to acquire land in hills and push the tribals out. So what is already much in advantage will become even more advanced, and they may create the same problem for other communities which they are afraid of. The language of the Methi people is included in the 8th schedule of the constitution. So the linguistically they are preserved, constitutionally safeguarded. Okay. And many of them have access to benefits associated with the SC, OBC and EWS status. So there is not only ST status to take advantage of, there is SC also, OBC also and EWS status also. Other thing, Kukis and Nagas, they are the tribal community. Point out that tribal areas are 90% of state's geographical area, but the bulk of its budget and development work is focused on the Imphal Valley. Okay, let's see what was the causation of the recent unrest. So there was, just a second, let me change the pen color. Okay, so forest eviction of the Metis. So Forest Land and Forest Rights Act, you can read. This is also a topic. And the latest amendments especially. These have also created many problems, the 2022 amendments. All right. Demand for the ST status of the Metis. So this we have discussed about. Delimitation process during 2020 not reflecting ground level population status of the Metis versus the tribal communities. That how many people are actually there. Then there is Kuki Naga, 40% population. They are still underrepresented in the assembly. So as I told, only 20 MLA out of 60 MLAs are representing the 40% population. Another thing is Myanmar migrant intrusion. So we have already discussed it in the geography. The border is porous, and since the ILP was discontinued, the population boomed because of the incursion. So this also creates problem between the various communities. Another thing is Manipur anti-drug drive. So Kuki-Zomi, these Kuki-Zomi people who come from the Myanmar, they grow poppy on the cleared lands and do drug business there. So it also creates tribal tensions. 38 villages in the Churachandpur Kohumbam village, protected forest area, are illegal settlements and its residents are encroachers. So encroachers are defined as those who are encroaching reserved and protected forests and wildlife sanctuaries for poppy plantation and drug business. Just a second. Okay. So the hill communities, which are Naga and Kuki, and the Metis have had ethnic tensions since the kingdom era. So this is the history and traditional tension, let's say. The Naga movement for independence in the 1950s triggered insurgencies among the Methi and Kuki-Zomi. The Kuki-Zomi groups militarized in the 1990s to demand a state within India called Kuki Land, a state within India. So this is also a matter of the internal security and regional conflicts or extremism in the northeast. This alienated them from the Metis whom they had earlier defended. In 1993, Hindu Metis, so this is also religious conflict, clashed with the Pangals, which were Muslims. And also there were horrific violence between the tribal Nagas and Kukis, which saw more than 100 Kukis massacred in a single day by the Nagas and 1,000 driven from their homes. So this area overall is of a conflicting history. It's historically conflicted because of the geography and demography. So what is our brainstorming here is to find a good way forward. So when we are not able to find a way forward to a historical tension, we look up to the constitution. and the committees. So let's see a way forward to this issue. So there is a need to evaluate the criteria for the ST status, such as given by other communities like the Lokur community of 1965, which recommended 5 criteria for identification. So this identity crisis can be solved with the tribal identity, if it's yes or no for the Métis. So there was Lokur community who gave the 5 criteria such as primitive traits, distinct culture, geographical isolation, shyness of contact with the community at large, and backwardness. Then there is Buria Commission, which was more recent. It focused on wide range of issues from the 5th schedule to tribal lands and forest, health and education, working of panchayat, and status of tribal women. Other recent was under Zaza community, under Virginis Jesus Zaza, and it constituted to study the 5 critical issues related to the tribal communities, which were livelihood and employment, education, health, involuntary displacement and migration, and legal and constitutional matters. Other thing is bring more surveillance across the border areas to prevent the incursion of the migrants. Need to maintain the identity of the people along the border areas to identify the local from the migrants, and signing peace settlements with the neighboring countries. The repeal of AFSPA, which is Armed Force Special Power Act of 1958. So this is what leads to militarization and extremism. So if this is repealed, it can be more helpful or more beneficial for the communities. Alright, the government should foster the participation of the people of the region in the decision-making process to instill a sense of ownership and belonging. So this was the lecture for today. I hope you learned a lot. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next class. Have a good and bright day and keep smiling.